Stephanie. I'd like to call the departmental meeting to order. If you'd stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone watching at home as well. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter? Trustee Mariscal? Trustee Kazam?
Present.
Trustee Gett?
Present.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Present.
Trustee DeVore?
Present.
Okay, we would be at item 4, approval of the minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting on August 18th, 2020. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. We'd be at item 5, announcements. Just one announcement that I have tonight. Last week we had another in a series of webinars with Hostel Levine and Farnsworth, who are leading us through a planning process in the village, and we had over 35 people, I think, participate in that webinar. That's now online. So if you missed that and you'd like to watch it, that's online at the village website. We would be at comments from the audience. If anyone would like to address the board, please come forward, give your name and address, please, and try and keep your remarks under 5 minutes. Anyone want to address the board tonight? Going once? Going twice. Comments from the audience are closed. We'll get right into trustee reports. Both Trustee Carter and Trustee Mariscal notified us that they will be unable to be here tonight, so we'd be at Public Works. Dustin, would you like to, or Mike or Dave, anyone jump in here?
Yeah, just this year we did the seal coat program and the spray patch program, and we completed both of them, and everything looked real good, what they did, and it was well worth the cost, and it will save us on the roads wear and tear for a while. So I'm just going to report on that, and I think that's about it. You got anything, Dave? Oh, the hill, yeah. This Thursday I'm going to close the hill. Let Brandon know. But 8:30 to noon for hill maintenance. We got a little bit of asphalt to do and a little trimming and cleaning up again. So, but it'll be closed Thursday. What is that? The 18th from 8:30 a.m. till 12 noon. If we can get off sooner, 17th. I'm sorry. If we can get off sooner, we'll try to get off sooner. But that's what we got in the bucket list for this week. So that's all I have. Mm-hmm.
Any questions?
Yeah, I think the flashing lights hopefully are going to help.
Oh yeah, all
Real nice.
3 of them. Yeah, Chris will put them up. So yeah, it's good to go there. I hope.
Like I told you earlier, I had a few people who don't even live in the Heights
Oh.
that notice those signs now that the lights.
Now that they're blinking. Yeah, I got one more post right there where you make that. I can put something there in my mind that we talked about, me and Chris and all of it at the garage. So, but that should be able to.
Yeah, if they don't see those signs now.
3 lights blinking at them.
what-
You're right.
But yeah, great job on that.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mike.
You get bit by a dog.
All right, we'll move on to building and property maintenance. Dustin, anything there?
Nothing there, Mayor.
Okay, economic and community development. Trustee Kazam?
We have a few things to talk about, just kind of updates with different things. The first we'll talk about is the rickshaw opportunity that I proposed and introduced to everyone, my fellow trustees last week, and Mark Walton will give us an update.
Sure. Thank you, Trustee Kazam. I spoke with Trustee Kazam about this, the rickshaw concept, and I think it calls out for an ordinance that would be similar to, but not quite as comprehensive as the pedal bus. I think it presents some of the same issues, but probably not as, I don't think we need as comprehensive a scheme to regulate, but it probably, is a good idea to have an ordinance that addresses rickshaws. So unless anybody has any other thoughts, my thinking would be that I'll prepare a similar ordinance to the pedal bus that covers rickshaws and bring it back to the board next month, for review and possible passage.
Thank you. And also, we discussed the idea of it competing with the pedal bus, and you agree that this is a different type of...
I really think it's going to attract different, just a different type of experience and different groups of people. Whereas the pedal bus, I think, is more of that's your destination experience for that night. The rickshaw is probably more likely something that people want to whim when they come out of a restaurant after having dinner. Hey, let's take a ride. It happens to be here. And I don't see that as really, one poaching off the other either way.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then the mayor spoke about the comprehensive plan, so we had that meeting this week. I also wanted to just update my fellow trustees that we are continuing to have trailhead meetings for Peoria Heights. We would really like to procure a trailhead in Peoria Heights, and so we are pursuing that, and we are pursuing the possibility of a grant opportunity along with that, which Eric Miller with Illinois Municipal League is helping us with. We also had a fantastic voters registration event with Tanisha Kaysen. She's a Peoria Heights resident. She started the peaceful protest for Black Lives Matter, and she also had a fantastically successful voters registration event. And lastly, we are continuing to have meetings with Jason Beverlin with the Redco Coalition, and we have provided video opportunities on their website, which is Scenic Byways. So that's to attract ecotourism and that type of thing to our community. And then one other thing, I just want to remind people about the census. So the deadline for the census is September 30th. Right now, the United States has about 63% participation, and we really want to make sure that everyone in our community participates in the census. It happens every 10 years, and this is so worthwhile with federal funding and also seats in government. So please participate in any way that you can.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on that report? Trustee Gett, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Phelan. First of all, I'd like to say, like the clock, missed it, but the other thing is, on a serious note, the chief informed me that we have a tentative agreement with the police department, and they'll discuss it next week. Anything you want to add to that, chief?
No, we'll start discussing it next week in executive session to go over the police contract with any questions or changes that the board might have, so that's kind of where we're at on it.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Trustee Gett. So, Trustee Weisenberg, Fire.
Thanks, Mayor. I have nothing to report unless Chief Walters has something.
Over the past couple board meetings, there's been discussion of...
Chief Walters, I don't mean to interrupt, but you're welcome to take this seat up here.
I'm real comfortable out here. Thank you anyway. We've talked about low manpower, issues like that, and we're looking at firefighter EMTs. We kind of changed our direction a little bit. We put it out not only to people who want to be firefighters, but also to those who just want to do EMS. And I'm proud to say that right now we have 4 people that have shown interest on the EMS side, and they're already licensed through the state of Illinois. I got a paramedic, 2 EMTs, and I do believe 1 EMR. As a matter of fact, a couple of them are being interviewed tonight. So that might assist us, or it will assist us with giving the response for EMS. So I just wanted to know, I didn't have a chance to tell you that earlier. So, but we got 4, and I do believe there's more people that are interested in it, and maybe that should have been the route we should have gone before.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, Police, Trustee DeVore.
Thank you, Mayor Phelan. First, I wanted to remind my fellow trustees that we will start discussing the police contracts next week. And if you have any questions or needed any clarification, to please feel free to reach out to myself or Chief Sutton to get information on that prior to next week's meeting. The next neighborhood watch meeting is going to be on October 26th at 6:30 p.m. here at Village Hall. Just trying to let everybody know that a little bit ahead of time. And We do have a new signage that will be arriving. These are going to go under our current neighborhood watch signs, and they are going to remind people to lock up their vehicles, lock up your valuables, and to just follow all of our lock up, be safe protocols. And that's all.
Thank you. Okay, good reports tonight. We'll move right on to old business. Any old business come before the board?
Mayor, I'll let you choose if you want me to address the P.H. Samuel issue under old business, or, I mean, it's...
Go right ahead.
Okay. Trustees, I hope, saw an email that I sent yesterday afternoon, sort of summarizing some of the last several months of meetings that we've had with the developer on the Samuel project. Not just the building that's under construction and almost complete, but the whole block and the redevelopment agreement that requires the village, to make improvements to Samuel Avenue. Just, by way of update, there's been a lot of meetings, there's been a lot of back and forth about how the street is going to be laid out with respect mainly to the parking issue in front of the new building. And we're at a point where we need some guidance from the board on whether or not, we want to widen that street to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic and parking on both sides, which would require fairly significant widening from what the street is currently. It's 30 feet now, and it would need to be somewhere between 34 and 36 feet wide. So that's a pretty significant expansion of the existing road. If we go with something lesser than that, it will compromise the easy flow of two-way traffic in areas where cars are parked on both sides. And as you know, there's no predicting, which hours, they're usually in the evening hours when, people are at restaurants. Sometimes, it's only a block off. The new development is only a block off Prospect. So you would expect some of those spots to be full. But a lot of, many parts of the day, you're going to have easy passage for traffic in both ways. The developer really wants the narrower streets, not just because of cost, but it's going to facilitate, arguably it's going to facilitate parking that they feel is very valuable to the project. The village engineer has, raised concerns about that. There are several spots around town where we have tight traffic, where only one car can get through when there's cars parked on both sides. We also have situations where there's angled parking, albeit closer to Prospect, like Duryea and I think Kelly. 2 examples, there's probably more. So we don't want to replicate bad designs or layouts, but we're trying to accommodate a lot of different interests, not least of which is the developer's need for parking. So just putting it out there, we don't need an answer tonight, but in the relatively near future, we'd like to hear from everybody so that everybody's voice can be heard in terms of how we're going to, part of this too is driven by, we don't want the engineer to spend unnecessary time drawing up plans and proposals that the board is not going to accept. So we're looking for direction in that sense as well, sort of as a time-saving and money-saving, way to avoid something that this board is unwilling to accept. Now, you may think that, that's up to the engineer, I'll let the engineer decide, but ultimately, under the redevelopment agreement, the board has to mutually agree with the developer on those plans and the layout. So this is your opportunity. If you have any questions, you can get with me, you can get with Chief Sutton, you can get with, we've all been meeting with the developer, like I say, many, many times, and we've got some drawings. We're not quite there with where everybody wants to be, so I can't give you anything that's like a final proposal that's approved by everybody, but we just really want input mainly on that issue of, are you comfortable with a more compact, narrower version of the road that's close, but maybe a little wider than it currently is, that will facilitate parking on both sides with angled parking in front of the building? Or, do you want, in order to accommodate two-way traffic, to go all the way to 36 feet, which is going to, incur more costs? Obviously, the more concrete you use, the more cost. So if anybody has any questions immediately, I can try to answer. Go ahead.
Okay, so regardless what we choose, who's paying for this? We are responsible for the payment of this, or the developer is responsible for the payment of this?
The village is going to perform the work, issue bonds that will be payable with the taxes generated by the project.
Okay. If we were to choose to widen the road, I get that we have so much of an easement, like set back into these properties, but what will that do to the sidewalks?
We'll still have sidewalks. We're not going to jeopardize sidewalks. We'll have at least 4-foot wide sidewalks on both sides, and the plan is for 5-foot wide sidewalks.
So if we choose the larger road, we would maybe have to go down to 4-foot sidewalk?
Probably would go to 4-foot sidewalks, and it would probably be combination curb sidewalks, so there wouldn't be any grass between the curb and the sidewalk, as is frequently the case. So the sidewalk would be right up on the road, which is less desirable. That is, it depends who you ask, but many people find that less desirable. It's the way it would be on Prospect, where the sidewalk goes right up to the curb. But in the residential neighborhoods, it's more customary to have, 18 inches, 2 feet of grass before the sidewalk, and that's the way it currently is, and what we would like to keep if possible.
So, but when we approved this overlay district, part of that was to have like parking and then a break and then sidewalks for a safety feature, right?
Right.
Beth, am I right on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the solution to not doing that would be to only allow parking on one side?
Well, we have plans that have parking only on the south side, at least for the first block, so in front of, Leaves and Beans, and then down to the new condominium building, and then, the street gets narrower. There are, like I say, there's several proposals on the table. The one thing that I think a lot of people don't like is widening the road to facilitate parking on both sides and two-way traffic results because of the way the condominium building is positioned and angled to accommodate angled parking there. Samuel will have to jog to the south, past the condominium building, and then go straight, and that's unnatural. I mean, it's not impossible to do, but there's problems with all of the designs. There are pros and cons with everything. So it's, and anybody is welcome to see any of the plans or attend, meetings if you want. It's just, there's gives and takes with everything.
I guess I just don't remember this being made clear when we approved this development, and so.
Oh, sure. And that's part of the reason why it's taken so long and there's been so many meetings. When the ZBA approved the site plan.
Right.
And the village board was asked to approve what the ZBA recommended.
Right.
We were really addressing that spot, the, property with the condominium building. And it was raised at the time that, we want the village engineer to weigh in because it's that one.
I remember that, but I
that
guess
one-
I just didn't remember that it would have to, that there would be any kind of jogging, like that it would shift that much.
No. This is step two. So the site plan got approved with that parking. Step two is now we got to design the road, and at least all the way to Columbus. So the engineer is tasked with, okay, here's the site plan for the condominium building. Now, basically design the road around that to accommodate, two-way traffic. And again, without going, having the road go all the way to the right-of-way line, if you want two-way traffic with plenty of room, 12-foot wide lanes instead of 10-foot wide lanes, you lose parking on the north side. So that's one proposal. We can go with narrower lanes that may or may not, depending on how wide the vehicle, you can't get two Escalades at the same time, but you might get two compact cars at the same time, with 10-foot wide lanes that would accommodate parking on the north side. But then the village engineer is concerned that people backing out of those angled spots are, we see it, they hit the stop sign all the time over on Duryea, right? Well, put a car there instead of the stop sign, they're gonna hit cars. So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
it's just a lot of competing interests to juggle.
I recommend that each trustee have this conversation with Alicia Herman potentially, or me. I'm happy to share these drawings with you. I've been in a lot of meetings, as has Mark, about this. And as Mark said, there are competing interests. The thing that we need to remember is that we are redeveloping or paying for, through bonds, a streetscape. And we certainly, I imagine we all feel the same way, want to do this right. We want to do it correctly. And we want to provide, we certainly want the mixed-use building, the condo building to have success because they need parking up to their building. But we also have to consider the residents and also the businesses across the street. There's a hairdresser across the street. We don't want to take parking away from that business either, or Leaves and Beans. So I would recommend that each person kind of look into this, and I'm happy to help answer any questions.
We received an email in July that had these drawings. Are those still accurate?
They are. We have not moved off of those drawings, but.
Okay. So we could review these drawings to have question, and then ask either one of you questions off of those.
Absolutely, but what we've narrowed it down to is the pull-in, back-out parking, not the back-in parking.
We've eliminated that.
We've eliminated the back-in parking. The developer is just not comfortable with that. That is safer. Again, different people have different feelings about it. Everybody that's been downtown Peoria by City Hall knows what the back-end parking is like. It's a lot safer, especially when you're pulling out. It takes less space, but there's fewer spaces. It only accommodates 7 parking spaces. They want 11. We can accommodate 9 with pull-in, back-out, but then when you're backing out, cars have a tendency to use more of the opposite lane to get straight and then, head down the street. So, not to mention the people that will try to do a U, about and head toward Prospect, because that will happen. I'm sure, Chief Sutton can tell you that people don't back out and always go the one direction. So, but we're on that pull-in, back-out plan that shows 9 spaces and no parking on the north side. And the developers, what the developer is pushing for is that plan, but narrower lanes of travel and reinstitute the parking on the north side of the street. That's really where we're at. We're either 7 spaces of pull-in, back-out parking with no parking on the north side that facilitates easy flow of traffic in both directions, or narrow up those drive lanes, retain the parking in front of the condo building, and lose the parking on the north side.
Okay, say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that just the 2 options we've narrowed down.
If you look at the option that Alicia provided that shows the 7 pull-in, back-out spaces in front of the condominium building, you'll notice that also shows no parking on the north side directly across from the condominium building.
So in front of the hairdresser.
Okay.
In front of the hairdresser, exactly.
Okay.
So what the developer is requesting is, let's go with that plan, shrink down the drive lanes from 12 foot to 10 foot.
Only in that area.
Only in that area.
Which is what's causing the jog. Yes
Okay.
or no?
I think they need to jog anyway.
Oh,
I don't think
okay.
we're going to eliminate that. So you shrink down those drive lanes, you gain the parking on the north side in front of the hairdresser. And the price is narrower drive lanes, probably inability of 2 cars to pass each other, when people are parked on both sides of the street, and a very good likelihood that they're going to get a lot of calls about people backing into the cars that are parked on the north side.
When do we vote on this?
Well, the goal is to get the developer in the village in a position where it's a plan that we are comfortable bringing to the board for a final vote.
Okay.
And we're not quite there yet, but I think that plan, as I described it, is something that the developer would definitely sign on to.
Okay.
And the board would then have to get comfortable with all of those, downfalls. The risk of, it's not a huge safety risk. I mean, it's not, people are backing out. That's always going to carry with it some risk. People backing out have a tendency to back into things. But when you remove the parking on the north side, you're not going to have people backing into cars on the north side. But when you add it back in, especially when you shrink the drive lane so you got less area to pull back to, odds are you're going to have those accidents.
Has the hairdresser or Leaves and Beans been in any of these meetings, or have they voiced a concern?
Not to my knowledge.
Like, okay.
No.
But I don't
We've
know.
never really been at a point where we were comfortable that it was something that we, I think we will involve them when we get a plan that everybody can sign on to, but we've been so far apart for so long.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question regarding the agreement. Are there specific stipulations or language about upgrading the infrastructure in that specific area?
Well, yes, we're gonna do what? Water, we're gonna do
Yeah, 'cause if you widen
the storm?
If you widen the road, you're gonna have significant water infrastructure.
Oh, we're, yeah, absolutely, that's all gotta be addressed. Right now, we're just on the street layout, the engineering for the rest of that infrastructure is gonna come once she's able to do cross-sections. Alicia can't even do cross-sections yet because she doesn't know where the road's gonna be.
Okay.
Anyone else? Is there a time frame we need to make this decision by?
It'd be nice if everybody could think about it over the next week, and I may come back next Tuesday night for discussion, if we could put it on the agenda next week.
We can do that.
In the meantime, I can circulate the plans that we have with, indications as to what we're looking to, how we're looking to modify those as we discussed tonight, and that'll give everybody something to look at.
Okay.
Just to kind of put a finer point on that, can you just explain how this is affecting the agreement or the developer? I mean,
Yeah.
because we have to make a decision so this can move forward. Correct or no?
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. The sooner the better.
Thank you for making us aware of that. Any other old business? Hearing none, we'll move right into new business. The first is a payment to R.A. Cullen and Sons in the amount of $102,124.78 for the 2020 seal coating program. May I have a motion? Trustee Carter's not here, so may I have a motion from someone else to approve this?
Make a motion. Second?
In a second? Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, like earlier, I just discussed the seal coat with Cullinan, and the Mid-State Asphalt did the spray patching, the $102,124.78 for the seal coating was all done and looks good, like I said before, so I say go ahead and pay Cullinan, and the second one I can, I guess go ahead and say something about it now, or be okay. And the spray patching too at $24,824.75 for the spray patching, which they did that first before we did the seal coating, which levels off the road where there's deep holes or whatever, potholes, and then we chip and tar it over the top of it with a trap rock. So I recommend we, say pay both of them. They look really good and they did a really good job. So.
Okay, any discussion or questions? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next is payment to Midwest Asphalt Repair in the amount of $24,824.75 for the 2020 spray patching program. I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the asphalt.
Motion?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Next is discussion approval of a police vehicle purchase in the amount of $29,292. Trustee DeVore, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the vehicle purchase for the police department.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee DeVore.
So you have in front of you the price for a 2020 Dodge Durango. This is when we were going through our budget items, we did approve for the police department budget to purchase 2 cars this year. After everything happened with COVID, Chief Sutton was very lucky to actually be able to stop one of the vehicles because it was not assigned a VIN number yet. So we do have this Durango that we are looking to bring in. The price of this is state bid. This is just across the board what it is, and we need this for the police department. So does anybody have any questions
This is
about
a
it?
planned purchase.
Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
planned purchase. It was budgeted, and so it's actually less than what we budgeted for.
Thank you. Anything else, Chief Sutton? Any discussion?
When you say that, did we commit to this purchase already?
Yeah, in our budget, when we budgeted it, like back in April, or when did we budget? When we approved our budget, we budgeted for 2, so we talked about how we were gonna purchase 2 vehicles in the police budget that we agreed upon when we did the budget. I don't remember what month that is.
Right. When you said that we were able to stop one,
Yeah,
because the VIN hadn't been issued yet.
correct.
So with the VIN being issued, are we committed to this purchase?
I don't know the answer to that.
Craig, I'll go back and clarify. I'll remind the board that, on these state bid vehicles, we place these orders months in advance of the budget. We do discuss them. We have a little bit of time at that point. If the board at that time decided they did not want to purchase those, I could have canceled them prior to that. And that's what happened a few years ago. I know Chief Walters will remember this as well, because one, I know he had a vehicle purchase on the docket. I had 2. They were all canceled because even though mine were ordered, the board at that time was facing $1 million deficit, so we could cancel them. At this point, the only reason I was able to cancel the one is a delay in the factory because of COVID. If they wouldn't have had a delay in the factory, they both would have been assigned VIN numbers and already in the queue, and we are on the hook for that bill. But they were great. Thomas Dodge was outstanding to go back and say, you know what, I got it before it got to production. It's not that we don't have the money. It's both of them were budgeted, but I'm sure we could use it in other areas moving forward. So just for future reference, coming up the budget this year, we'll go back to our 5-year plan on our vehicle purchases. And if we're in a state that we can't afford 1 or 2, whatever that might be, I believe next year is 2, we're trying to make up for the last 3 years of really cutting back all of our vehicle purchases. So at this time, we're not trading anything in. We have a few with high mileage. Next year, we could be faced with trading 3 vehicles in with high mileage. We had a few vehicles damaged with the rioting and looting. They took a pretty good beating, but we're making it work. But to answer your question, Trustee Weisenberg, yeah, that we are committed for the 1. Obviously, we be committed for the 2nd. And when we discuss this moving forward next year, we'll have to look at our budget, and if there are issues, then that would be the time to say yay or nay. We don't have, we want to be cautious moving forward with only 1 purchase or 0 purchases. So that's kind of the timeline when it comes to state bid vehicles. They have to be, if we don't place them in advance, we might not get them till the end of next year. And even though we are a small department, we have, we need vehicles that that run, so.
Anything else, Trustee Weisenberg, on that?
No.
Okay. Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Kazam.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Okay, that passes, thank you. We would be at ordinance 2020-1633, an ordinance pertaining to the local cure program. Trustee Gett?
I make a motion to pass the ordinance for the local cure program.
Thank you. And a second, please?
Second?
All right, go ahead, Trustee
Okay,
Gett.
we've discussed this. This is where the police department will be reimbursed for stuff they've had to spend because of the COVID. Did you want to take this over here, Chief? Or?
Well, not just police department, this is all village expense. There are a lot of different things that are eligible for reimbursement, so it's not just the police department. So this, for us to be eligible, we need to have this ordinance on the books, as we discussed last week. So I recommend passing the ordinance.
So just to be clear, I know we discussed this last week, we have to have the ordinance in order to identify what we are able to be reimbursed for.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Kazam.
Aye.
Trustee Gett.
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg.
Aye.
Trustee DeVore.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Next is ordinance 2020-1634, an ordinance establishing the office of Chief of the Fire Department of the Village of Peoria Heights. Trustee Weisenberg?
Sure. I move to approve ordinance 2020-1634.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. And a second?
Trustee DeVore.
Second.
Go ahead, Trustee Weisenberg.
So we've all seen this ordinance. This ordinance pertains to when we get to the point where we hire a fire chief. This would govern that department. We've discussed it several times. I think last meeting was up for discussion. I don't think we had many questions about it, so.
I do have a question, I'm sorry. You said this is if we hire a fire chief, or this is effective regardless?
This
If
is
we
if-
hire?
This is if we hire a fire chief and there's a salary attached to it.
We, it's always good for a municipality to have an ordinance that identifies all of the offices. There are elected offices, obviously, and then there are appointed. And I was surprised that we don't have a fire chief ordinance. So we've obviously operated without it for a long time, but technically it would apply to the current chief. So, it's just a process. Now, the current chief, nobody questions that he was properly appointed, and there's no dispute over that. So, in a sense, it really will only apply to the next chief, because that'll be the next person being appointed. But it's good to have it on the books. It clarifies the process for appointment and approval by the board. And frankly, it's something we need.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that it would apply to the current chief, just because the ordinance specifies.
Only in the sense that he occupies the office that we're formally creating. The office has existed. Nobody disputes that it has existed, and that Chief Walters is the properly appointed fire chief, so we're not trying to undermine that in any way. So, but, I bring that up only because he is the fire chief. This ordinance doesn't change that. The next time the mayor will appoint another fire chief is when the board decides we're going to hire a different fire chief after Chief Walters retires.
But whether the fire chief is paid or volunteer, this still remains the same.
Correct.
Thank you.
So really, we're just laying the groundwork if we need to hire a fire chief in the future, correct, council?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So we're not reacting, we're ready to go.
Nope, right.
So this wouldn't change the status quo as it is today.
It does not change the status quo. It just formalizes that which we've been doing informally for decades.
I would hope that we would get this in place in case we have the need to hire a duty crew and hire a chief, but if you're not ready for this tonight, we can always defer it to another meeting if you have more questions, but we wanted to get this out in front of you.
I feel comfortable with this. I mean, we are trying to keep our options open in retaining a resident fire department here, and these are the actions that need to be taken if we, don't want to contract with Peoria. So.
And just to be clear, I think if Chief Walters had told us that he was going to work for another 15 years, I would still, I see his head nodding, but I would still recommend that we adopt this ordinance. I only realized we didn't have such an ordinance when I looked to find out how the fire chief is appointed in the village. So that was when I pointed it out to the mayor. We got to have an ordinance that deals with the fire chief. So irregardless of our current situation, where we're going, this is something that's appropriate and needed, but it's especially needed because we believe that at some point in the, whether near or relatively near future, we're going to need to address this issue.
This is just a housekeeping issue.
It really is a housekeeping issue. I can't believe it wasn't on the books.
Because he currently reports to the mayor now. That is not
Absolutely.
going to change. So
Nothing is changing.
Right.
We're formalizing that which we've already been doing.
Well, I think this goes back pre-COVID when Chief Walters and I talked about a duty crew, and we mentioned that the things that would have to change with hiring a fire chief, and I asked you to look into that. So that probably got sidetracked due to COVID.
That's kind of, exactly, but that was kind of what started the process, so.
I'm ready for the vote, if everyone else is.
I am.
I'm ready.
Madam Clerk?
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
Okay, thank you all. Next is discussion of fire department and wording of a non-binding advisory referendum. Trustee Weisenberg, please start.
Thanks, Mayor. We've discussed this last couple meetings, but I believe Mark was not available during those meetings. So I know we had a little bit of a disagreement on how it should be worded. So have you watched those previous meetings? Or
You know what, I honestly, I haven't, but what I would tell you is, you know, the goal of a non-binding advisory opinion is to get as much input from the community as you can in a one-sentence question. And so the wording of that question becomes important, because if you just say, do you want to, you know, terminate the fire department, you're going to get a lot of no's, but that doesn't help with, you know, cost factors, alternatives, things like that. So you want that question to have as many of the conditions that you're trying to get the public to weigh in on included in the question, so that when somebody says yes or no, it has more meaning than just, I'd like to keep the fire department. So that, you know, again, I don't, while I'm not familiar with all of the debate over the language, really to me, what I understand that the board and the mayor are looking for input on is, you know, is this something that we want to hire, whether it's full or part-time? Because again, a lot of this is, we don't know what we're really gonna want to do necessarily. So, you know, do we want, you know, should the village, what I came up with that I thought was appropriate to at least work off of is, should the village of Peoria Heights hire a full or part-time fire chief and retain its fire department, even if the village could save X number of dollars, we gotta decide what that number would be, by obtaining fire protection services from alternative sources. Now, we don't have to have a dollar amount. We can just say, if we can obtain fire protection services from alternative sources for less money. But I think a lot of people would answer differently depending on how much the savings was. If it's, you know, a relatively small amount, they would say, let's keep our fire department. If it's a substantial amount that's going to require tax increases, that may change their answer. So that's what I say. It's how that's worded is very meaningful in terms of what you gather from the public's input on that limited question.
Yeah, so here have been my concerns. Peoria, in the Peoria Journal-Star, April this year, said it costs $1,250 every time their fire trucks leave their firehouses.
Right.
They're telling us they're going to charge us $750. So they're on record saying it costs more than what they're charging us, which is suspicious to begin with. And then the gentleman that was here from Peoria 2 weeks ago said that the cost could be much higher and that it would likely increase by 3% each year. So I don't feel comfortable telling the citizens of Peoria Heights that this is going to save them butts loads of money, and within a couple years it could be equal or more.
Right.
Secondly, if we're going to put that it's going to save, if we're going to put in the question that it's going to save them money, we also need to put in the question that response times are in question, because if half the Peoria City Council, the fire department union, everyone's saying response times are going to increase with them losing 2 companies. So that is also something that should be in the question, because no one wants their response time.
Right, right.
Everyone you talk to in Peoria, it's like it's Armageddon, that they're losing
clearly
their fire stations. I know on September 1st, I saw a news article that said that Peoria had 3 fire engines and 1 truck to cover the entire city. So, you know, if the Heights has a fire, who's coming?
Right.
We're going to wait. So I think, you know, if we're going to say it's going to save them money, we also need to let them know that, you know, we could be waiting in line.
Right.
So I don't really want to load the question anyway, to be honest with you. I want it to be as neutral as possible, and I've said that each time we've talked about this. But I can't remember his name. Who was the guy that was here last week? It wasn't Artist.
Tuttle, right?
No, the guy that from Peoria that said
Oh.
that he didn't know where this $150,000 was coming
It
from.
was their assistant chief.
Yeah, the assistant chief. So I'm even a little cautious about even putting a number on there, because they didn't even seem confident on the number. To the point he said he didn't know where that number even came from.
What he was referring to is that that's based on last year's call load. Those numbers could increase if our calls go up, but it could decrease if our call goes down. They had to have some starting point to come up with that figure, so they used the following year's figures. That's where they came up with that. But trying to project next year's, I mean, you don't know. It could be, our call load could be higher, could be lower. You know, there's no way to tell that. So that's kind of where it was coming from on that.
Right. And that's where I get nervous, because if we tell the citizens it's gonna be less, and then that year it's more, we can't go back.
Right.
I feel like using the wording, like, would you want to pay less, is the same thing as us asking, do you want to lose the fire department? Because who's going to vote no to that?
Right.
So I feel like that's leading, and we're getting the same answer as if we would have asked, do you want to keep the fire department?
Have you done this for other municipalities
I've never had a municipality do a non-binding advisory
on fire or police?
on anything.
But we've done it for,
I know we did it for the E
Well,
EMS.
we did it for EMS, but the difference there is that we weren't paying AMT anything. So
Right.
it was framed a little bit different because, you know, it doesn't cost us anything to go with AMT. At that time, you know, we were losing 150, 200,000 a year, even though we had a very efficient department, full-time paid. But that's how that rolled out. But it is obviously a little bit different because AMT doesn't charge us.
right.
So.
I mean, I agree with my fellow trustees, we don't want to lead the question at all. And I think that the reality is, in my humble opinion, is that whether it's Peoria or Peoria Heights, we will be paying more for fire protection.
Yes.
The residents of Peoria Heights will be paying more for fire protection.
Right.
What that number is, none of us have a crystal ball. So I don't know if the question is, do we want to keep fire
Well, the
under
way I
our
had it
jurisdiction?
phrased-
I mean, is that yeah, under,
So the way I had it phrased was, if the alternative to hiring a full or part-time fire chief was less money, not that the
Not that it
village
will
is going
be,
to,
yeah.
that it's going down from where it currently is, but that we've got two choices. We either retain our fire department, hire a full-time or part-time fire chief, or we go with an alternative source, which we know would be Peoria. And if that alternative is less money, do we want to nonetheless retain our fire department to have the local control, response time, for all of those reasons? But again, the more you load the question up, the harder it becomes to answer.
Well, actually, I guess maybe the question for us, we're trying to get a read from our residents. Maybe it's less about financial and more about how important is it to the residents of Peoria Heights to retain a local fire department? Am I thinking of that right or
Right,
no?
no, that's
And-
legitimate.
And because we can't tell them whether it will be, what the number is, or, you know.
But most times
What
I've had
information are we
discussions.
trying to glean from this question? That's the question we need to ask. What information are we trying to gain from the question?
Right.
I feel like what I want to know is, are you willing to pay more money if that means keeping our fire department in-house? Right? Like, as a resident, like, you own your home, are you willing to pay more money on your taxes in order to be able to maintain and control our fire department?
But it could cost more anyway.
I understand, I'm not doubting that. I mean, regardless, whether we go one way or the other, I think it's gonna start costing us more. It's a sure thing that, yeah, Peoria may be cheaper in 2021, but they're not gonna be cheaper in 2025. I firmly believe that. So, are you willing to spend a little bit more money in 2021 so that we can keep the fire department in-house? Or do you wanna wait till 2025 to pay more? Or however, I mean, we don't know, like, we don't know. So are you willing to spend, like, Trustee Kazam, as you as a resident, are you willing to spend more money on your property taxes? Like, I feel like that's the answer I want to know, not you specifically, but as an example.
Getting back to the crystal ball, if we put the if in there, if it was less, we're not gonna know that until it's too late.
Which is part of the inherent conundrum with trying to solicit public input through a one-sentence yes or no question.
Right. And the more complex the question gets.
The less valuable the answer is.
Right.
Can we ask two questions, though?
I suppose we could have multiple non-binding, each sentence is going to be a question. So it has to be phrased as a question, and it has to be answerable yes or no. It's not a survey, but here's what most municipalities that grapple with issues like this, there are other ways to solicit public input. And this isn't going to be on the ballot until April. right? That's a long time away. You can get a lot of input. Now, again, you don't know if that's only people that have one opinion, you're missing the people with the, but there are other ways to solicit input. But if we're going to do it in the form of a question on the ballot, we got to include as much information as possible so that the answer is meaningful without making the question undecipherable. So that people don't know what they, what's
Are you
that?
recommending we do something different besides a non-binding referendum? Like,
No, I'm just suggesting that if you put a lot of stock in this is going to give you all the answers you need from the public, you're probably placing too much,
Yeah, value on that.
yeah.
I do think that we need to get very aggressive about soliciting input from the public. I've said this before, I think that some people know that this is happening, but I would say that's like 10% of our residents. I hope it would be more, but I don't know that people
Yeah,
really
you know,
understand what's going on here.
A well-advertised public forum on it, multiple well-advertised public forums, where people can participate, via, computer, electronic means. So you provide their input through Facebook, email, there's all kinds of ways we can get that input, but Trustee Kazam's exactly right. It's getting the word out so that you know that everybody that has an opinion on this, and pretty much most adults probably have an opinion on it, have an opportunity to voice that opinion.
Well, could we send out flyers or whatever and have a special meeting and
Absolutely.
inform
Absolutely.
the people that we need your input. If you
I
can,
think
call
you'll.
the village hall and,
Yeah.
because April, it's a long ways away and we got, till November to get that put on the ballot? I think we need to get an answer sooner than that.
Well, I don't disagree with that, the timing question, and I think you'll get a lot more valuable information if it's free form as opposed to constricted to a yes or no answer to a question that may or may not be read the same way by each person who's in the voting booth.
In a perfect world, we would have this on the ballot November.
Yeah.
But obviously it's not. So talking present day, it sounds like Chief Walters is off to a good start recruiting people. Because
Right.
this has got a lot of layers and they're all moving targets. We have
Absolutely.
Chief Walters is going to try to recruit, get our numbers up so there are no issues. We have the Peoria option, we have the paid option, then we have to advertise the job descriptions. There's so many moving parts to this, so I know that the timing is a big issue. We need to work, and it sounds like Chief Walters is off to a great start with having a handful more of volunteers than we had a few weeks ago, and hopefully that continues. And in a perfect world, he wouldn't retire. But that's going to happen eventually. I don't know what his timeline is, and we're going to have to make a decision on what we're doing. So whether that be in-house paid, go with the city, and then how are we going to pay for both? So I don't know. I think that it really did help us out, obviously. Chief Walters decided not. It bought us a lot of time, hopefully going with that route, if that's the case, and recruiting people. But if not, we really have to keep all the options moving forward because we're going to be sitting here, and it's a public safety issue. We're going to have to come up with something, and if we wait to the last second in the spring, we're going to have to, we're going to be
Then your
scrambling.
options are closed, right?
Exactly. So are we going to wait until April to decide which route we're taking? Is that,
Well, if we're
I-
doing a referendum, we're gathering information that we'll hear.
Yeah,
at that point.
the ballot question can't happen until the April 6th election, so, but it doesn't mean you can't do both.
Right.
That's my point.
This is not your only vehicle to solicit
Not just
public
both, all of the above.
All of the above.
Absolutely.
And when we get to the referendum, and let's say Chief Walters brings in 15 more people, and it's a well-oiled machine, and we don't, public input, it's non-binding, we can
Yeah.
listen to it, we have the solution, then we're good, and we can go from there. But devil's advocate, he loses two, and we don't even have the same amount, then we're
Right.
faced with what are we doing now, and we have to start working towards that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. It's got to be three-pronged. We got to keep pushing everything forward.
Council, when's the deadline for putting this on?
Boy, you know what? I forgot to bring that with me tonight, but we've got until, the deadline for the November ballot just passed. It's 58 days or 65 days. It's basically 2 full months plus maybe a week before the election.
So
you would
we
be
should-
talking the end of January.
So we should take a little bit of time to form
We've
this.
got plenty of time to decide on the ballot question if that's the route we go. But I don't think we do that exclusive to all of the other vehicles that we, and there are creative, I mean, we've got creative people here in Village Hall that can solicit public input. We just need to open that up to every vehicle that we can, not least of which would be advertising a public forum. We've done it on other issues. We've done it recently.
Can't we create a survey and post it on the website too?
Absolutely.
Like, then people could take it anytime, because I think a special meeting may be great for some people, but it's not great for everyone, to be here at like 6 o'clock or whatever, at night or whatever.
Absolutely. And I like the idea of a survey, especially if it's not, real, 20 pages long. I mean, I don't think we have, it is complex, it is multi-layered, but I think it's something that could be reduced to, a few questions or 6 or 7 questions. And that's going to be far more valuable information than a yes/no answer to a question, no matter how we phrase it, no matter how many variables we're able to weave in there. That's going to be probably the least valuable information. It may reach the most people, although I would hasten to say that the municipal election is not, the best attended. The November presidential election is probably likely to draw more voters. I don't know what our history is in terms of voter turnout in presidential elections versus municipal, but
Much higher during a.
yeah. So, you've got that factor working against us as well. And, when you have low voter turnout, it's going to be the more politically active people that vote in those municipal elections. So you're limited to a group of the population that, again, it's not a bad vehicle, but it shouldn't be the only, and nor is it the only way to solicit input from the public. So I would encourage you to use all of the above.
I would think a good way is, because we did this before, we had the neighborhood meetings, best way for me to put it. We had them down there by Allens. We had one up at the library, and the other one was down below there.
Permanent Associates.
I think that'd be a good idea. It makes it easier for them it's in their neighborhood, they can walk to it, they don't have to come up here. And if you want to do it on a Saturday, I don't have a problem with that. If we can, however we got to do it.
Those are things that I think we should discuss, and I think we should probably start working on the survey.
We need to get them all, however, we got to reach to everybody we possibly can, because this is very important, and we need everybody's input. But, because what I'm getting, my 10 years of being up, my email's blowing up big time on this, and they're all leaning towards keeping it the Heights Fire Department. I mean, hopefully we can do that, so.
Can we agree that we, as trustees, want to create a survey and push educational information out to the residents? I mean, can we decide that tonight so that we can get started on that?
Would we draft the material in a public meeting? Like, what would be on the survey?
Well, we might be able to come up with something, offline and then talk about it in a public meeting.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what, we do a lot of stuff before we get here on Tuesday night.
Yeah, a collaborative effort before a meeting and then discuss at a meeting is probably the most efficient and quickest way.
Right, let's work towards that, so we have something for the board to review, and they can either accept it, make changes, whatever.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you for that discussion tonight. We'll keep this on the front burner.
Absolutely.
We'll move on to miscellaneous business. Any miscellaneous business to come for the board?
I have some miscellaneous
Yes.
business. I know we've done a lot of effort over the years and like really cleaning up our alleys, and as far as everything the police department has done with ordinances and code enforcement, everything is looking fantastic. However, we don't have anything that speaks to garage doors. So we have no ordinances that state that you have to have a garage door. So there are some properties that there's no sliding down garage door where you pull your car in, and then any debris that's in the alley is there. It's attracting rodents, things like that. So I propose that we have an ordinance that states that you have to have a garage door.
Would you like to get that on the agenda for future?
I would.
Council, would you email or call council and
Call me anytime.
Okay.
we'll get that on the agenda then, Trustee DeVore?
Well, the only thing else, is there anything else, the board, since we're drafting that type of ordinance, is there anything else, trustee DeVore, that you can think of that would be included in that?
I mean, I feel like our alley presence as a whole probably needs to be cleaned up. Like, I feel like we do have things that state that I think you have to have lids on your garbage can, but I don't know, like, maybe this is a time that we say, like, you know, you have to use the garbage cans from GNO disposal that have a lid. I mean, they're free, so I don't really see why we wouldn't. And I think it would just make it look nicer as a whole if we mandate some of those things, or, you know, like, it should be clean. Like, you have to keep your yard looking nice, like, whether it's in the alley or, yeah.
Well, what code enforcement does, we do go out into a property with problems like that. We do try to, you know, let them know that you have this option to get this free tote. It's cleaner, it's got a lid, and a lot of times they take us up on it, but a lot of times the renters do not. So they continue to let their garbage fly all over, and we fine them. And obviously that's a weekly battle for us. But code enforcement, they do recommend that to residents. If we do go there, if we get a garbage complaint, say, look, you have this, it's your disposal for free. Here's the phone number. They do a great job of that, but you know, do they follow up? Sometimes they do. But I'll tell you, there's more totes now than there's ever been in the last, 6 months, because I know they were trying to keep up and they couldn't. Supply and demand, but we continue to push that.
I think it's come a long way, so I'm not saying that the code enforcement is not doing a wonderful job. They are. I just think that what can they do? If someone has no garage door and there's debris and food and stuff sitting in their garage, code enforcement really can't do anything about it. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's a security issue as well for the police department, so I'm all in favor of that. I think it's a great idea, because all that does is you can't even leave your cars unlocked at night, let alone take your garage door off.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing issue, and I think that's a great ordinance to have put in place.
I have a situation that I've been dealing with that this neighbor has put 2 sections of privacy fence. One this wide, the other this wide, one stockade, one picket dog ear, and he just shoved it in between the fence and the bushes, eventually supposedly to put in a privacy fence. I don't have a problem with that, but he's just left it there for a year. I don't think people should be allowed to just shove that, because it's an eyesore that I have to look at on my patio all the time. Luckily, it's being resolved, but nobody else should have to go through that, what I've gone through in the last year and a half. So, and there's no ordinance for that, but nobody should be able to take, and he got this off a job site, these 2 pieces, and I can show people this picture. Chief's seen it. It's not a pretty sight. Just shoved right up in there. And he's in Indiana right now, but luckily he's got somebody who's going to move in there, and I know the people, and that's going to be taken care of. But for future, I don't want anybody else to put up with what I put up with. And so I don't know how you would draft it, but you can't just stick garbage in your fence that your neighbor's got to stare at.
Well, unfortunately, I understand that, and no one's more OCD and picky than I am. I'm going to tell you that. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of things as far as cosmetic that we can't do anything about. So as much as I understand it, Jeff, it's a slippery slope, because there are a lot of properties in the Heights that are missing siding, exposing the wrap. I mean, yeah, it's not very nice to look at, but again, there's no ordinance on it.
Well, maybe we ought to look about it, because.
Well, we can propose this to zoning, no?
Yeah,
In a lot of that, what you're in, like talking about fences and unfinished fences, I understand your situation. It's a little bit different than the zoning fences.
Okay.
So what he's talking about is more cosmetic. I've seen this.
Actually, it's garbage, it's not permanent. It's just shoved up there between these bushes that they planted too close to the fences anyhow.
Well, then you get
And
in-
the chain link fence.
Then you get into a point, what's unsightly to one is not unsightly to another.
Well, I'm just saying, you can't put temporary stuff up there and just leave it like that. It's not a permanent structure. There's got to be some reasoning, way to word it, that if it's not a permanent structure, it can't stay there.
I will get
We can make an ordinance and word it that way.
the garage door is a public safety issue.
Right.
That is something that we can attach to the ordinance, so I will work on that.
Okay, we're going to get that on the agenda. We're going to move on. Anything else under miscellaneous?
Yeah, real quickly about the garbage
Go ahead,
cans.
trustee Ryan.
This might get me another hate mail from GNO, but could we mandate that landlords provide those free garbage cans? Could we say if you have a rental business in the Heights, you've got to have the red and blue tote.
And we could redraft that ordinance to include that.
It doesn't cost them anything.
that's not enforceable.
I
What's
do
that?
think that's a good idea.
Well, and some do and some don't. I mean, some
Right, but I
have-
think if we put it on the backs of the landlord to say, hey, these
Right.
things are free, you have to provide them for your tenants. You know, a business in the Heights, they have to provide for their own garbage
Right.
disposal for their business. A rental property is their business. The
And-
tenants are their, I don't want to call them product.
And we do have landlords that actually call and request more. I know the
Right.
one up here on Montclair, he called and he said, I need more totes for my residents, and, you know, he's gotten more. So some are being proactive about it, but then some just don't care. So,
Right.
I mean,
But
but if
you-
we mandated it, it's something we could
Those
change.
do, and I know how bad the alleys are, because the mayor and I spent a day picking up garbage in the alleys. They are bad. If we could, and it seems primarily the renters, if we could, you know, put it on the backs of the landlord to say, provide these from G&O.
Well,
It's a great idea.
and since, we initiated this landlord registration program, we've really taken grasp of this and it's gotten a lot better. It has. In fact, a lot of them that were landlords that just running properties in the ground didn't care about this community have moved on. They've sold them. We see this every month, and I'm very happy. That's one reason I've been pushing for this program for years, is because the landlords just come in here, they don't live here, live across the river, live out of state, and just let these people run them into the ground. These companies that just maintain them, they don't care. They have no local investment, and, you know, the good thing is they're selling them, we're holding their feet to the fire, they're getting fined, we're making them do things, we're inspecting their property, not to mention what we're doing for the renters. I can tell you a story last week. We saved a whole family of 4 because of a rental inspection that we went in that had a broken pipe in the furnace in the basement that our guy caught with 3 little kids sleeping upstairs. That's happened twice in 3 months. I'm gonna tell you what, that program right there paid for itself in 1 day. And I'm very happy I didn't pass that on at the time because we've been busy doing some other things, but I love hearing those things, and that's why I implemented that program, is because, one, these renters, it gives them a little bit of a voice on their landlord. So the landlord down in Florida doesn't care that a family of 4 is sleeping here in the Heights and has no heat or has carbon monoxide, and that's what we're here for. And I am so proud, and I can talk about this, I know I'm on my soapbox, but I'm proud of this program and what it's done, but it's not perfect yet. But we're getting there, and that is part of it. Garbage complaints, junk complaints, and we will get there. But I think tightening up that ordinance is a great gesture, and you know, I can frame that. So then next time we go there and we do pass, we give them the document and we do the inspection, we said, these are the changes we've made, so next time, you know, we're gonna look for this stuff. So, great, we'll take care of it.
Back to your original point, Trustee Weisberg, if you have some suggestions, email them to council. If you want to amend the ordinance, we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay? Any other miscellaneous? All right. We would be at the treasurer's report.
As of the end of August, there was $3,203,837.31 in the village-controlled accounts. There was $1,285,243.85 in the water-controlled accounts.
Okay, you've heard the treasurer's report. I would ask for a motion to approve it.
Motion to approve it.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
All right, that passes. Trustee Gett,
Make a motion to adjourn.
and a second.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion to adjourn signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all.